Okay, and it's time for a late night movie plot. Well, actually, movie plots, because I have quite a few for you. Uh, we're going to do movies that were either produced or written by John Hughes. You really cannot go wrong with John Hughes. This guy is a movie legend. That was a picture of John Hughes at the premiere of Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. So, I'm going to do quite a few of these. We're going to do 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, and National Lampoon's Vacation. Some of my personal favorites. So let's start with 16 Candles. Alright, so in a suburban Chicago neighborhood, high school sophomore Sam Baker is hopeful her 16th birthday is the beginning of a great new year, but is shocked when her family forget it's the occasion because her older, beautiful, self-absorbed sister Ginny is getting married the next day. At school, Sam fills out a friend's sex quiz where she reveals her crush on senior classmate Jake Ryan. Meanwhile, Jake, having noticed how Sam looks at him, asks his friends Rock about her. Rock dismisses her as immature and reminds him he is always in a relationship with another popular girl at school named Caroline. But Jake says he is frustrated by Caroline's constant partying. On the bus ride home, Sam fends off repeated flirtations from geeky freshman Ted. At home, Sam's day gets worse when she discovers she must sleep on the sofa because her grandparents and foreign exchange student Long Duck Dong are all staying at the house for the wedding. She is further upset when her grandparents also do not remember her birthday and have Dong go with her to a dance at school that night. At the dance, Sam pines for Jake while Dong has attracted the powerful and strong jock Marlene. Ted, trying to impress his friends Bryce and Wace, dances with Sam, who runs off in tears. In an effort to salvage his reputation with all the geeks, Ted bets Bryce and Weiss a dozen and floppy disks that he will get physical with Sam before the dance ends. As proof, Bryce and Weiss demand Sam's underwear. Jake asks Ted about Sam having seen them dancing. Ted apologizes to Sam, who opens up about her family forgetting her birthday and her crush on Jake. Ted tells her that Jake asked about her, and Sam is shocked and asks what Ted thinks she should do. Despite his genuine interest in Sam, Ted encourages her to talk to Jake, and she agrees. Before she leaves, he gets her underwear to win his bet, and he, Bryce, and Weiss charge the other freshman boys $1 to see it. Meanwhile, Sam tries to approach Jake, but loses her nerve and runs off. Jake and Caroline leave the dance, leaving Sam thinking Jake does not like her, and vice versa. At Jake's house, Caroline and her friends have started a wild party. Jake, angry with Caroline, retreats to his bedroom and tries calling Sam. But her grandparents answer the phone, and after they yell at him for waking them up, they tell him that Sam isn't interested. After the party, Jake is furious at the damage left behind. He finds Ted trapped under a glass coffee table after having knocked over the beer can pyramid the night before. Ted tells Jake Sam is interested in him, and Jake confesses that he has lost interest in Caroline. He takes Sam's underwear from Ted and in exchange lets Ted take a drunken Caroline home in his father's Rolls Royce Cornish to further impress the geeks. Ted stops at Bryce and Weiss's house to get Weiss to take a picture of him with Caroline in the expensive car. But he finished picture only reveals the top of Ted's head. Sam's father apologizes for forgetting her birthday and tells her that if Jake does not see what a wonderful person she is, then he is not worth Sam's type. She lies on the couch thinking of Jake, not knowing that he is also thinking of her. The next morning, Sam's mother also apologizes to her, and everyone heads to the church for the wedding. Jake arrives at Sam's house, where a hungover Dong miscommunicates that Sam is at church getting married. Jake finds Caroline and Ted making out in the back of his dad's banged up car, and then Jake and Caroline break up. Jake then surprises Sam at the church after the wedding and invites her back to his house. That night, Jake gives Sam her underwear back and a birthday cake with 16 candles on it. He tells her to make a wish, and she tells him her wish already came true. They kiss as the film fades to black. Yeah, this is a really, really good movie. It's a movie that features Miss Molly Ringwald, who I have seen in quite a lot of John Hughes films, especially the next one, The Breakfast Club. On Saturday, March 24th, 1984, 5 students at Shermer High School in Shermer, Illinois, report for an all-day detention. Socially awkward Brian Johnson, jock Andrew Clark, shy loner Allison Reynolds, popular girl Claire Steindish, and rebellious delinquent John Bender. They gather in the school library and meet with their vice principal, Richard Vernon, who warns them not to talk or move from their seats and assigns each them the task of writing a 1,000-word essay describing who you think you are. Bender ignores the rules and spends his time antagonizing the others and defying Vernon, who gives him 8 additional weekends of detention. All because Bender said, "Eat my shorts." The students sneak off to retrieve Bender's marijuana stash from his locker, all while trying to avoid seeing Vernon in the halls. It's clear he was patrolling the halls to see if the gang tries to escape the library. When they see Vernon returning to the library, Bender deliberately gets caught to allow the others to sneak back in. Locked in a storage closet as punishment, Bender is betrayed by Vernon. Even further, he tells him that he wants Bender to prove how tough he is, and is offered a chance to punch Vernon, but fails to act. I thought he was going to do it. He soon escapes into the ceiling panels and falls into the library, where the others hide him from Vernon. The students pass the time arguing, listening to music, and smoking marijuana, gradually opening up about their home lives and their reasons for being in detention. Claire's popularity subjects her to intense peer pressure, while her bickering parents use her against each other. Claire had received detention for skipping school to go shopping. Bender reveals the physical abuse he and his mother suffer at the hands of his father, including cigar burns, as well as other injuries he has sustained from his father physically abusing him. Bender was served detention for pulling a false fire alarm. Andrew became influenced by jock culture and is intimidated by his father to succeed in wrestling. He was given detention for tapping a student's buttocks together in an attempt to win both his teammates and his father's approval. Brian is under so much academic pressure from his parents to get good grades that he attempted suicide after getting an F in shop class. He was sent to detention for bringing a flare gun to school. Allison is compulsively dishonest with his neglectful parents, constantly stealing things to use should she ever run away from home. She admits that she showed up to detention for lack of anything better to do. Despite the differences, the students realize they all face similar problems. Andrew and Allison bond over their complex relationship with their parents. Brian and Claire each feel anxiety over being a virgin. Still, the group suspects that their new friendships will end once detention is over. Meanwhile, Vernon complains to the janitor, Carl, that students have become less disciplined and more arrogant compared to the ones he had when he was a teacher. But Carl suggests that Vernon is the one who has changed and cares too much about what students think of him. The others convince Brian to complete Vernon's essay on the group's behalf. Claire gives Allison a makeover, which sparks romantic interest from Andrew, and Bender crawls back to the closet where Claire challenges her pristine reputation by kissing him. As the students part ways, Allison and Andrew kiss, and she rips the state championship patch off his Letterman's jacket to keep. Claire gives Bender one of her diamond earrings, and they share their own kiss. Vernon reads Brian's essay, which asserts that the vice principal has made petty assumptions about all of them and declares that each one of us is a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club. Finally, Bender walks home across the school's football field and raises his fist in the air triumphantly as he leaves. This is a really good film. Sometimes it makes you think, how cool can detention get? Usually detention is a place you don't want to be. Not for these students. They had at the time of their lives in detention. Now, let's do Ferris Bueller's Day Off. On a warm and sunny spring day in Chicago, high school senior Ferris Bueller fakes illness to stay home from school. His parents, Katie and Tom, believe he is ill, though his sister Jeannie does not. After learning Ferris is absent from school for the 9th time in that semester, the school's dean, Ed Rooney, becomes determined to expose Ferris's truancy. Ferris has changed his attendance records by hacking into the school's computer system, making it appear as if he had attended school regularly. Ferris persuades his hypochondriac best friend and Cameron and Fry to help excuse Ferris' girlfriend Sloane Peterson from school by claiming that her grandmother had died. Cameron calls the school pretending to be Sloane's father, knowing Sloane is dating Ferris. Rooney is suspicious. Ferris also calls the school during Cameron's phone call to confirm his absence, thereby fooling Rooney. To complete the rust that Sloane's father is picking her up from school, Ferris borrows the prized possession of Cameron's father, a 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California Spider. Fearing his father's wrath, Cameron is dismayed when Ferris takes the car on a day trip into Chicago. Ferris promises they will return the car as it was, including preserving the original odometer mileage. Ferris, Cameron, and Sloane leave the car with 2 parking attendants who promptly take it on a long joyride. The trio eat lunch at an upscale restaurant, visit the Art Institute of Chicago, go to a Chicago Cubs baseball game, and attend the Von Steuben Day parade, where Ferris jumps on a float and lip syncs to Dang Showin' by Wayne Newton and Twist and Shout by the Beatles. Rooney prowls the Bueller's home for Ferris, becoming victim to several pratfalls and a mean-ass Rottweiler. Jeannie, who has been buffeted all day by wild rumors of her brother's severe illness, skips class and returns home to confront Ferris, but finds Rooney instead. Shocked by his appearance, she knocks him unconscious and calls the police. Rooney regains consciousness and leaves, and the police arrest Jeannie instead, believing she prank called the police station. While detained, she meets another delinquent who advises her to worry less about Ferris's exploits and more about her own life. Upon collecting the Ferrari and heading home, Ferris and Cameron discover that the car's mileage has significantly increased. Cameron becomes catatonic from shock, but wakes up after falling into a pool. At Cameron's house, Ferris jacks up the car and runs it in reverse to rewind the automator. However, this attempt fails, and Cameron destroys the car out of anger toward his domineering father. Ferris offers to take the blame, but Cameron decides to tell the truth and stand up to his father. After walking Sloan home, Ferris remembers his parents will be returning soon. He runs through the neighborhood but is nearly hit by Jeannie's car as Jeannie and Katie are driving home. Katie fails to notice Ferris, though Jeannie obviously did. Ferris makes it home first, but Rooney confronts him before he can get back inside. Seeing the two through the window, Jeannie has a change of heart and allows Ferris to come inside, claiming that Ferris was at the hospital for his illness. She also shows Rooney his wallet that he had fallen from his pocket in the kitchen earlier, tossing it into a nearby puddle and shutting the back door loud enough to wake up the family's pet Rottweiler. As Rooney flees the house, Ferris rushes back to his bedroom to await his parents. They find him in bed and believe he has been at home all day. In a scene that plays during the credits, a humiliated, deceived, and injured Rooney reluctantly accepts a ride on a school bus filled with students who act decisively towards him. He sits next to a girl who offers him a gummy bear from her pocket, which he tosses away in disgust. Rooney glances at another student's notebook, which has "Save Ferris" written on the cover, before glaring at the camera as the school bus driver drives off. In the post-credit scene, Ferris looks into the camera and says to the audience, "You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go!" Oh, man. Save Ferris. All right. Time for a movie that features my friends Steve Martin and John Candy. Planes, trains, and automobiles. All right, let's see. Neil Page is an advertising executive on a business trip in New York City, eager to return to his family in Chicago 2 days before Thanksgiving. After a late-running business meeting with an indecisive client named Mr. Bryant, Neil struggles to hail a cab during rush hour. As he bribes a man and to let him have a cab he has hauled, someone else takes it. Neil arrives at LaGuardia Airport just as his flight is delayed. While waiting, he meets the person who immediately stole his cab, Del Griff, a talkative shower curtain ring salesman. To his dismay, Neil is assigned a seat next to Del on a crowded flight to O'Hare International Airport. A blizzard in Chicago diverts the plane to Wichita, Kansas, where Neil and Dell must stay overnight. Neil tells his wife Susan what happened. Neil is unable to book a room, but Dell has reserved one. Neil reluctantly accepts Dell's deal. Dell will ensure that Neil gets a room if Neil pays for their taxi ride to the motel. During check-in, Dell mistakenly takes Neil's credit card and vice versa. Forced to share the last available room, Neil loses his temper over Dell's irritating behavior. Dell is hurt, but both men calm down and awkwardly share a bed. While they sleep, a burglar steals their cash. The next day, with air travel still prohibitively delayed, Neil buys them both train tickets to Chicago, with seats in separate cars. However, their locomotive breaks down near Jefferson City, Mississippi, stranding its passengers in a field. Neil takes pity on Dell, who is struggling with his trunk, and they reunite, traveling on a crowded bus to St. Louis, where Dell raises cash by selling shower curtain rings to passerbys, presenting the rings as earrings. However, Neil accidentally offends Dell over lunch by suggesting that they go their own directions, and the men part ways again. At the St. Louis airport, Neil attempts to rent a car, but is missing when he gets to the lot. After a long and perilous walk back to the terminal, he vents his anger in a profane tirade at a rental agent to no avail. He attempts to book a taxi to Chicago and impatiently insults a dispatcher, who then punches him in the face. By chance, Dell arrives at the scene in his own rental car and takes the dazed Neil with him. As they drive, they argue again. Dell nearly gets them killed overnight when he drives in the wrong direction on a freeway. As they compose themselves by the side of the road, Dell carelessly discarded cigarette sets the car on fire. Neil intentionally gloats, thinking that Dell is liable for the damage, until Dell reveals that he had found Neil's credit card in his wallet and used it to rent the car, much to Neil's ire. With his credit cards destroyed in the fire, Neil batters his expensive watch for a motel room. Dell has nothing of value, so he attempts to sleep in the charred, roofless car. Seeing this, Neil pities Dell and invites him inside. They share Dell's collection of miniature liquors and laugh about the events of the past 2 days. The next day, the pair resumes their trip in the burned car, but the Illinois State Police impounds it for being unroadworthy. Dell persuades a trucker to take them to Chicago, and they ride it in the truck's refrigerated trailer. At the Chicago L station, Neil sincerely thanks Dell for getting him home, and they part ways with affection. As Neil rides a commuter train to his neighborhood, he recalls some of Dell's odd comments and silences during the journey. It occurs to him that Dell has not been trying to get home. Neil returns to the station, where he finds Dell still sitting. Dell explains to him that he is homeless and is a widower, as his wife died earlier 8 years. Neil decides to bring Dell home for Thanksgiving dinner and introduces his family to his new friend. In a post-credit scene, Mr. Bryant is still in the office alongside a half-eaten Thanksgiving dinner, still trying to decide on a poster. Man, you're gonna believe how crazy it is to get in that much trouble heading back to Kenilworth in Chicago. Now it's time for the second to last movie, Uncle Buck. So, Bob and Cindy Russell have recently moved from Indianapolis with their 3 children, 15-year-old Tia, 8-year-old Miles, and 6-year-old Maisley, to the Chicago suburbs. Resentful about the move, Tia's relationship with her mother is fraught. The Russells receive a phone call informing them that Cindy's father suffered a heart attack. Bob and Cindy unsuccessfully attempt to find a caretaker for their children and are forced to turn to Bob's younger brother, Buck, whom Cindy believes to be unreliable and a bad influence. Buck lives in a small apartment in Chicago, is a heavy drinker and smoker, drives a rundown 1977 Mercury Marquez Brougham coupe, and earns his living by betting on rigged horse races. His long-term girlfriend and Chanice desires to get married and start a family, while Buck wants to retain his freedom and lack of responsibility. Chanice warns him that he will eventually end up alone. Buck quickly befriends Miles and Maisie, whom he has never met, but Tia remains distant and rebellious. He settles into the Russells' home and learns that he has been cropped out of his brother's wedding photos. Over the next several days, Buck takes the children bowling, ejects a drunken party clown from Miles' birthday party, defends Maisie from her school's strict assistant principal, and washes laundry in the kitchen sink because he cannot operate the washing machines. When Buck meets Tia's obnoxious boyfriend, Bug, he warns her that Bug is only interested in her for sex, and repeatedly he thwarts her plans to sneak out with him. In retaliation, Tia convinces Chanice that Buck is cheating on her with a neighbor, Marcy. When Chanice walks in on Marcy dancing with Buck, she ends their relationship. Buck laments that people used to envy his carefree life, but he realizes that lifestyle is no longer admirable. After Tia sneaks out to a party, Buck decides to look for her instead of attending a horse race that would provide him with enough money for the entire year, and begs Chance to look after Miles and Maisie. At the party, Buck forces open the door to a bedroom where he thinks Bug is taking advantage of Tia, but he finds Bug with another girl. He binds and gags Bug and locks him in his car's trunk, then finds a tearful Tia, who admits Buck was right about Bug. Opening the trunk, Buck forces Bug to apologize to Tia before letting him go. Bug threatens to sue Buck, but Buck hits him with golf balls, causing him to flee in terror. Tia reconciles with Buck, then mends his relationship with Chanice by admitting her lie and telling Chanice that Buck would make a good husband and father. Buck also agrees to take a steady job at Chanice's auto shop. Bob and Cindy return from Indianapolis after Cindy's father recovers, and Tia surprises her mother with a hug. Cindy promises that their relationship will improve. As he prepares to leave, Buck invites Tia to meet up with him in the city before exchanging a loving goodbye. Yeah, this is a very funny film. I just feel like any movie that involves John Candy, you cannot go wrong. He is a crack up. One part in the movie that sticks in my mind is when he made that giant pancake. All right, time for the last one. National Lampoon's Vacation. Let's go, Chevy Chase. So, Clark Griswold, wanting to spend more time with his wife Ellen and children Rusty and Audrey, decided to lead the family on a cross-country expedition from the Chicago suburbs to the Southern California amusement park, Wally World. Billed as America's favorite family fun park, Ellen wants to fly, but Clark insists on driving so he can bond with his family. He has ordered a new car in preparation for the trip, but the dealer claims that it will not be ready for 6 weeks. Clark is forced to buy the Wagon Queen family truckster, an ugly, oversized station wagon, after the car he traded in has been crushed. During the family's travels, they experience numerous mishaps, such as being tagged by vandals after taking a wrong turn in St. Louis. Clark aggravates a bartender in Dodge City, Kansas, which made him fire a shotgun and made Audrey almost lost her hearing. And is tantalized on numerous occasions by a beautiful young woman driving a Ferrari 308 GTS. The Griswolds make a side stop in Coolidge, Kansas, to visit Ellen's cousin Catherine and her husband Eddie, whose voice cranky Aunt Edna and her mean dog Dinky on the Griswolds, asking them to drop her off at her son Norman's home in Phoenix. It's one of the best scenes and lines in the movie. You tell them the good news? You're driving me to Phoenix! That never gets old. Anyway, after stopping at a disturbed and dirty campground in South Fork, Colorado for the night, Clark forgets to untie Dinky's leash from the rear bumper before driving off the next morning, killing the dog. A motorcycle cop pulls the Griswolds over and angrily lectures Clark about animal cruelty, but accepts Clark's apology. Edna learns of this and becomes irritated over Clark for killing her dog. Exiting Colorado, Ellen loses her bag that had her credit cards, and Clark reports them as lost. While Ellen and Clark argue during a drive between Utah and Arizona, they crash and become stranded in the desert near Monument Valley. After setting off alone to look for help for hours, Clark reunites with his family, who have been rescued and taken to a local mechanic. The mechanic, also the town sheriff, extorts Clark's remaining cash, only to render the car barely operational. Frustrated, the family stops at the Grand Canyon. When Clark is unable to convince a hotel clerk to cash a personal check because his credit cards have mistakenly been reported lost, he raids the cash register behind the clerk's back and leaves the check. Continuing their drive, the Griswolds find that Aunt Edna had died in her sleep. They tie her corpse to the roof of the car, wrapped in a tarpaulin. Discovering that Norman is out of town when they arrive at his home, they attach a note to the corpse and leave it in the backyard. Overwhelmed by the mishaps they have encountered, Ellen and the children want to go home, but Clark has become obsessed with reaching Wally World. After an argument with Ellen, Clark meets the Ferrari-driving blonde at a hotel bar, weaves several lies to impress her, and goes skinny dipping with her in the hotel pool. They are quickly discovered by the family due to Clark's yelling about the cold temperature. Clark tells the woman the truth, and they part ways amicably. Ellen forgives Clark, and they go skinny dipping themselves. The Griswolds soon arrive at Wally World, only to discover the park is closed for the next 2 weeks for repairs. Slipping into madness over his efforts being for nothing, Clark buys a realistic-looking BB gun and demands that the park security guard Russ Lasky take them through Wally World. Soon, an LAPD SWAT team soon arrives, but as the family is about to be arrested, park owner Roy Wally shows up to de-escalate the situation. Roy understands Clark's longings to achieve the perfect vacation, brings back memories of his own family vacation troubles, and he decides not to file criminal charges against the Griswolds and lets the family, along with the SWAT team enjoy the park as his guests. A montage of snapshots taken during the trip is shown during the credits, ending with one that shows the Griswolds flying back to Chicago. Man, don't you just love of the Griswolds? They put on a lot of adventures on that trip. It just never gets old. Thank you for watching.